In 1451, 19-year-old Mehmed ascended as the supreme ruler of the Ottoman Turks. Despite his young age, this new sultan was eager to make a mark in history. His greatest ambition was to conquer the Byzantine capital of Constantinople and transform it into the center of Islam. Constantinople is a millennia-old capital located at the southern tip of the European continent. It is bordered by the Golden Horn to the north, the Sea of Marmara to the south, and faces the Anatolian Peninsula across the sea to the east, with only its western side connected to the mainland. It was a fortress that was easy to defend, but difficult to attack, surrounded by solid walls, with a fortress built every 100 meters or so along the walls. For centuries, the walls of Constantinople successfully repelled 22 invasions by foreign enemies. Sultan Mehmed possessed extraordinary military and diplomatic abilities. Before preparations for war were fully underway, he spread words of peace. He emphasized adherence to the treaties previously signed with Byzantium, vowing not to invade Byzantine territory. On the other hand, he was swiftly preparing for war. He quickly assembled a formidable army of 100,000 troops. This Turkish army was well disciplined and fully equipped. The most courageous among them were a legion of 12,000 soldiers forming the Janissary Guard. Janissaries were taken from their families at a young age to train and excel in military skills, known for their exceptional bravery and appearing only in the fiercest battles. Sultan Mehmed was well aware of the formidable defenses of Constantinople and the significant challenge in conquering it. After much deliberation and consultation with his ministers, he decided to construct a massive cannon to breach the walls of Constantinople. Guided by a Hungarian engineer, the cannon was finally completed after several months. On the day of the test firing, the Sultan personally attended the event. Accompanied by a thunderous explosion, the enormous stone projectiles shattered a distant section of the wall to pieces. The effectiveness was truly remarkable. The next challenge was transporting the massive cannon to the front lines. To accomplish this, the Sultan utilized 60 oxen to slowly pull the cannon on large carts to their destination. Soon after, 30 huge cannons were positioned around the walls. Additionally, the Sultan assembled a formidable fleet of 125 warships, blockading the western side of the strait, effectively preventing any external supply ships from aiding Byzantium. On April 6, 1453, the Turkish massive cannons began bombarding the main walls of Constantinople, and the battle commenced. The defense forces of Constantinople were composed of 7,000 men, including 2,000 foreign volunteers. The defenders were well organized, with defensive weaponry including javelins, bows and arrows, catapults, primitive gunpowder guns, and cannons. After several days of bombardment, the outer walls of the city were breached in several places, and groups of Turkish soldiers rushed towards the gaps. Byzantine soldiers on the walls counterattacked continuously with gunpowder guns and cannons, killing many Turkish soldiers and causing bloodshed. The numerous daytime attacks were repelled. At night, the defenders secretly left the city to repair the breaches. They blocked the gaps with planks and fences, then piled them with bags and barrels filled with soil. The next day, the Turkish cannons would blast open the breaches again. By night, the defenders would repair them. In this way, the war reached a stalemate. Unable to breach the front, Turkish soldiers began to dig tunnels, aiming to infiltrate the city from beneath the moat and walls. However, the city's residents discovered the Turks' actions and destroyed the half-dug tunnels with water and fire. Battles also took place at sea. One day, 4 Genoese warships supporting Constantinople broke through the Turkish naval blockade and sailed into the Sea of Marmara. The Sultan immediately dispatched dozens of warships to intercept them, but several were sunk by the Genoese sailors. Those 4 warships eventually entered the Golden Horn and docked at Constantinople's port. The timely arrival of reinforcements and supplies filled the entire city with joy. They loudly mocked the incompetence of the Turkish navy from the walls. The next day, the Turkish naval commander was dismissed by the Sultan. On the surface, the war seemed to be evolving in favor of Byzantium. However, at this point, the Sultan learned from his mistakes, and a bold plan took shape in his mind. To the north of Constantinople was a narrow bay called the Golden Horn. The Byzantine forces had stretched a thick iron chain across the entrance to the bay to block the Turkish fleet. The Sultan decided to circumvent the obstructing chain by having warships dragged overland from the opposite shore of the bay, down the hillside, to unexpectedly enter the bay and attack Constantinople's less defended flank. On the evening of April 22nd, the Turkish Navy quietly navigated 80 ships around the mouth of the Golden Horn and approached the shore. The Turks then dragged the ships to shore with manpower and horses. Next, they laid a wooden slide on the land, greased with a large amount of fat to reduce the friction of dragging the ships. Overnight, the ships were transported over the hill and into the Golden Horn via the slide. The next morning, the defenders of Constantinople saw the enemy fleet in the Golden Horn and couldn't believe their eyes. Were these ships drilled out from underground? While they were in shock and disbelief, the Turkish fleet began bombarding the other end of Constantinople, forcing the Byzantines to reallocate an already dwindling number of defenders to resist the attack. The final moment of battle arrived. Sultan Mehmed called out to his soldiers, "Soldiers of Allah, you are on the verge of the ultimate victory. Before you lies a city of magnificent architecture and untold treasures. After breaching its walls, you may plunder at will for 3 days. All the wealth, jewels, and people within the city will be yours. As for me, I only seek the honor of conquering this city." On the morning of May 29th, Turkish soldiers launched a fierce assault from both sea and land. At the foot of Constantinople's 6-kilometer-long walls, tens of thousands of Turkish soldiers valiantly stormed the city. All the war drums were beaten, and all the military horns sounded, encouraging the attackers to scale the walls. Inside Constantinople, the bells of all the churches rang out, inspiring the defenders to bravely resist. The battle reached its climax. Under the cover of artillery fire, the Turkish forces charged forward in waves, only to be repelled each time. At this critical juncture, the Sultan played his trump card, ordering his elite Janissary corps into the fray. Clad in glittering armor and helmets adorned with feathers, they charged in waves. Under their fierce assault, Constantinople's situation became increasingly dire. The Byzantine Emperor himself took to the battlements to direct the defense. At that moment, something unexpected happened. At a certain point on the north side of the wall, a Byzantine soldier, after launching an attack and returning, failed to properly secure the small gate on the city wall. Several Turkish Janissaries noticed this fatal mistake, forcibly entered through this small gate, and opened a pathway into the city. Soon, reinforcement troops entered the city unopposed. "The Turks have entered the city!" This shout had a greater impact than the might of the giant cannons, completely shattering the defense forces' will to resist, causing them to flee the battlefield. Realizing the situation was beyond salvage, the Byzantine Emperor, gripping his sword, charged towards the oncoming enemy and met a heroic death. The Turks flooded into the city like a tide. They plundered extensively. Many residents were enslaved. Grand palaces were set ablaze. Countless art treasures turned to ash, and all churches and monasteries were destroyed. In less than half a day, numerous small flags were hung throughout the city, each flag indicating that the respective house had been thoroughly looted. The world-famous Hagia Sophia was converted into a mosque. Not long after, the Ottoman Empire moved its capital to Constantinople and renamed it Istanbul, meaning the City of Islam. With the fall of Constantinople, the Byzantine Empire, which had a history of more than 1,000 years, finally came to an end.